Hello and welcome to this special series of public policy discussions. I'm joined by Rahul Khullar, former Commerce Secretary and also Chairman of the Telecom Regulatory Association of India. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Khullar. So let's talk about some of the big infrastructure challenges that we are facing in this country in the context of the targets we're setting. One of them is smart cities. It's very ambitious. Part of it is really an integration or a retrofit of existing cities. Some of it is new cities. We face many challenges. Some of them are implementation, and that's another discussion. But some of it might be to do with the way we are designing our approach, the way we are formulating our approach to the very concept of smart cities and the very way we want to build or rebuild. Where do you feel our biggest challenges lie?
I think one of the biggest challenges is to distinguish between making smart cities and making cities smarter, the point you made. And let me go on the first one. This is something that has been shared with the audience just now, which was that making cities smarter is definitely more doable, also more challenging. Tokyo or New York or London were not born smart. You retrofitted smartness. Retrofitting requires a whole set of issues. Example, take Kanpur. Supposing I wanted to clean up the city, get sewage treatment plant done properly, or solid waste management done, or transportation. What would I do with the leather industry? Would I have to relocate it? If I had to relocate it, where would I locate it? What infrastructure will be required for that? Point, simple point. This was done in Kolkata. The leather industry moved out of the heart of Kolkata into Banitala. But we need to focus much greater attention on what needs to be done in these dimensions. Second, it is impossible to think that all cities have the same problems. So my suggestion would be, don't try 100 cities, take 10 and use different models for sorting out different problems. You may want a solid waste management project on a pilot basis in Banaras, whereas in Chennai, you may need water management. In most cities, you could have smart grids. Meaning these are all standalone projects, and we need to be able to execute them, learn from our experience, and then move on. Essentially construct a prototype and then move. On the making of smart cities, I think the challenges are even more difficult, because there you're sort of starting on a clean board, but there are certain things that are not going to change. You will still need green areas, you will still need water, you will still need power. There are huge licensing and regulatory business issues. How will telecom or electricity be regulated? Because in that particular area, those regulatory powers repose in other regulatory bodies. Then institutional structures. How are you going to build an appropriate institutional structure for it? Because if you're going to build a smart city and you're going to convert it to a as usual municipality that we have, I assure you that smart city will die. So it's a combination of both infrastructure, intelligent planning, integration with regulators, and building institutional structures which are both capable of learning, guiding, and delivering the smart city.
Okay, so you gave the example of Kanpur and you talked about the leather industry and where it could go, potentially go. So are you saying that we are, even at this point, whether it's Kanpur or many other cities, we are not thinking through?
Absolutely, that is exactly the point I'm making. I think that in this endeavor to sort of tom-tom an ambitious 100 smart city project, we will lose out what as we always do. We will not get the 100 smart cities built. Worse yet, we will not even be able to retrofit them. Simple solution, as far as my experience tells me, is take up individual projects. Consult people who are experts. Go ask, there was a mention of a university, UC Berkeley, and MIT, which are working on these ideas. go learn from them. And don't learn necessarily how to make a city smart, but can I make my city smarter, and in what dimension? I think that's what our capacity building is all about. If we learn how to do that, then replication is not a problem. Replication is easy. The point is who is the first mover, what is the first successful project we have to showcase, on the basis of which you can proceed further.
So let me flip the question. So we have challenges of urban migration. We have challenges of highly dense cities, or cities which are getting more and more dense. Cities like Delhi, for instance, are facing additional problems of environment and quality of air and so on. So life is difficult for even those who live here. From which side should we be approaching the problem, or rather, how should we be trying to resolve this?
I think I couldn't communicate it properly. I think both. I said it inside the room. First, if you're making a new city, plan for 6 or 8 times its size. There's no harm. It will grow. Right? Instead of building a 2-lane highway or 2-lane roads, build 6-lane roads. That's the core infrastructure part of it. The smartness part of it will come from sensors, a nerve center, electronic communication systems. I'm not so worried about that. That will fall in place. It's these other things that need to be done. Please remember, when Corbusier built Chandigarh, or Lutyens built Delhi, they thought they were building the smartest cities in the world. Now, you yourself said, meaning Delhi is a terrible place to live right now. And Chandigarh has gone from rack to ruin, in my view, because I have grown up in Chandigarh, and it was a beautiful city, and it's anything but beautiful today. So, separate these two, the infrastructure that has to be built, and its carrying capacity and load carrying capacity for the future, that must be planned. Second, how to integrate with that infrastructure the smartness that will make it a smart city.
So let me sort of go a step above and say, how do we create the thinking infrastructure and the design infrastructure or the capacity to build all of this in the way it should be done, with the custom fitting for each of these cities, new
I think you will
old?
need 2 separate groups of people, 3 separate groups of people. You will need institutional planners. That is, how is this smart city going to be governed? Because if it's going to be governed badly, or governed according to some outmoded law, it's doomed to failure. It doesn't matter how successful the engineers are. Second, the second group is the infrastructure people. Please do not let state government, public works department near these things. They will wreck it. You are better off asking professional construction companies, professional infrastructure companies to develop these projects, draw up the schemes, and then this thing. Third, then you have to turn to the communication wizards. And whether they're going to tell you put the ducts in, whether they're going to tell you fiber to the home, all the other parts of it, those will fall into place. The critical component there will be how you build a central nerve center, or a central brain, or a central CPU. Because the key part of the smartness is collating the information and taking instantaneous decisions. Now, that is not the job of a civil engineer. And that is not the job of a country planner. That somebody else has to do. But you will need infrastructure people, you will need country planners who will lay out your city for you, landscape it, do whatever you. You will need communication engineers, and you will need institution builders. Without these 4 falling in place, there is simply no way you can make a smart city.
So how do we augment this brains trust? I mean, you talked about
I think the ISB started with a good idea. I think the session today was interesting in terms of learning. I think this is something which you need to do not in a conference in New Delhi. You need to do it in an academic environment. So my advice to you would be go back to Mohali or Hyderabad or wherever you want to, and call separate groups of people, separate experts from these, and start listening to what they have to say. All that is going to guarantee to you is that you may not make blunders. You will make mistakes. But at least once they have spoken to you, you will have a much better assessment of the dimensions of the problem. Simply announcing 100 cities without even the faintest clue about which block is going to fall where, that serves no purpose. I mean, it's a catchy slogan, but it's not going to get done.
Right. So is there an example that you can think of, I mean, it could be from anywhere in the world or within India, which you think is a successful way to build something of this magnitude? It could be in the nature of a public-private partnership.
Yeah, let me give you an example. I think Tokyo has a very good smart grid operation, okay, for power. That's something you can learn from them. I think some amount of traffic management in London is also done very intelligently. Learn from them. If London can tax every car without a bunch of tax inspectors for coming into the central area, why can't you? Whether it is in Bangalore or whether it is in Lucknow or whether it is in Delhi. Now, please understand, I don't know a whole lot about smart cities. But common sense tells me that no city was born smart. They have been made smarter. And to the extent they've been made smarter, we should smarten ourselves by going out and learning those experiences.
Right. So last question. I mean, you did hint that the people who should be building should be professional construction companies, at least the building.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm assuming the technology will. So you're clear that it is public-private, but clearly private plays a significant role.
I would say public-private definitely, much more private than public. In a different sense, you will need public support. You will need raw water supply. You will need linkage to a power plant. You will need licensing regulatory issues resolved. There will be a partnership. You will have houses constructed. Now, those can be predominantly privately. You construct the house or the flats or whatever it is. A private party can do it, and he flogs it for whatever he gets. There is a partnership there, but the actual layout of the city, the actual construction of that city, and the planning for that city should not be left exclusively in public hands. I am very clear about that.
That's a good note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us.